podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Framerate is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
Hello, I'm Bob Ross, and I'd like to welcome you. First of all, let me take just a moment to thank you for allowing me back into your homes. If this is your first time with us, let me extend a personal invitation for you to drag out your oil paints and paint along with us each week. Let's go over to the canvas here and let's get started. I believe, every day's a good day when you paint. I believe, it'll bring a lot of good thoughts to your heart. I believe, every day's a good day when you paint. I believe, it'll bring a lot of good thoughts to your heart. Let's build a happy little cloud. Let's build some happy little trees. There are no limits here. You start out by believing here. You can almost paint with anything. All you have to do is practice. There are no limits here. You start out by believing here. This is your world. You're the creator. Find freedom on this canvas. Believe that you can do it. Because you can do it. Give it a little touch. Give it a little push. Make love to the canvas. Give it a little touch. Give it a little push. Caress it. Very gentle.
Getting a little too hot.
Yeah, dude. It was saucy.
It's Frame Rate! Welcome to Frame Rate episode 87. I'm Tom Merritt.
Hey guys, I'm Brian Brushwood.
And he is in the studio with me.
It looks like
tell?
it. This is, I'm like that Tupac hologram, only pastier.
Oh, now we're going to get a takedown notice for infringing
For
patents.
saying the word Tupac. for using my likeness to host the show. Hey, how you doing, Tom?
Doing good. I'm glad to have you alongside.
Yeah, dude, this is a weird day. You know, I flew into San Francisco last night.
Boy,
We got up this morning to launch our ridiculous erotic fiction prank, which you can find that, just look, forget it. But then, and so I came up here. We're hosting Frame Rate.
Promoter.
I'm terrible at promotion. Up here to do these shows, and then I'm leaving tonight at 1 a.m. to fly out to Indonesia to appear on their big magic special. This thing's like as big as the Super Bowl over there, like 70 million viewers. It's going to be amazing.
You know, I have Jakarta in pocket planes.
I don't know even I can make up words too. What is I have Jakarta in pocket planes? It sounds dirty.
Jakarta, Indonesia.
Yes, okay,
yeah,
right.
that part's easy.
Sure,
right?
sure.
So this is like painting, right? It all starts. Pocket planes is an app. It's a game.
Got it.
iOS.
See, I should learn about this iOS thing. This sounds fantastic.
We should, first of all, thank William in Chicagoland for suggesting the Painter of Light opening.
Yes. Well, and this is from the same folks who did I'm sure you saw the Mr. Rogers one a while ago. PBS Digital Studios threw those together. And they're so just when I think I'm over auto-tune, something just catchy enough gets in.
It's that this isn't about auto-tune, like, hey, look what I did with auto-tune.
Right.
It's about, hey, this is what we did with Bob Ross. We used auto-tune to do it, but that's not the star. The star is the stuff that he says, which is awesome.
Bob Ross
like singing along.
is forever in my mind equated with being sick. Every time I was sick, it was like this weird, like 2 o'clock in the afternoon when you're still home from school and you have a fever and you're just sort of dumb staring, and it was always Bob Ross.
I associate him with my grandma, who painted along with him.
Oh, did she?
She totally did.
Did she have
I
good
even have
paintings?
one of her painters. They were okay. They were good. I mean, they were grandma good. You know what I mean?
Grandma good, and title of the episode.
All right, let's start off with the big story.
This just in, the big story.
I know Thomas Kincaid is the Painter of Light. Whatever. This is not paint rate. It's frame rate.
It's frame paint.
All right. Let's start off. Let me see if I can get something wrong with the tech story. The Olympics. Oh, I said it. Are we going to get a takedown notice? Crap.
Yeah, man, they are fired up about this. What's the story on this one here?
Well, the outrage over NBC's attempts to satisfy the internet are a delight to behold.
So And what exactly is the complaint? Because I read this entire article, but because
What exactly isn't the complaint?
Well, I noticed the chatter on Twitter with nobody being able to get a live feed.
There's the hashtag of NBC fail out there because people are saying, oh, well, I'm watching tape delayed, but your Twitter feed, NBC, already told me the results of the thing you're pretending is live on television.
Oh, that's hilarious.
That's one thing. But here's the point. NBC is saying, what are you talking about? Everything is live on the internet. If you go to NBCOlympics.com and you authenticate, you have to be paying for cable or satellite, so there's a pain point right there. But let's be honest, most people are.
Yes.
So if you authenticate that I am a paying subscriber, and you don't have to have a big special package, you just have to have one that has MSNBC and NBC,
right?
Then you can stream every event live on the internet. Some of it has commentators, some of it doesn't. There's some complaints about the quality of the streaming. There's servers have been getting hammered, but it's all there. They're not restricting anything. However, they didn't stream the opening ceremonies live, and they won't stream the closing ceremonies live.
Why not? Why on earth not?
They told the LA Times that they need to provide context that doesn't translate online so the audience can understand.
So translation, you're too dumb to appreciate the raw feed.
That's the way I took it. And I think what it is they don't have the commentators for everything online. So I was thinking, well, maybe they think they wouldn't be able to stream it with the commentators if they did it live. Well, but even if they didn't, I don't care. I want to watch it. And I did watch it. I watched the opening ceremonies on the BBC. I found a stream.
Now, how is this different from the other times? Because I could have sworn, I think the last time I paid attention to opening or closing ceremonies was, I guess, in Australia or I guess in Canada. I don't remember there being any controversy like this, was there?
Well, in the past, they haven't streamed every event live.
Okay.
So it's as we, as a society, get more sophisticated, the noise gets larger. People have been complaining that the Olympics aren't streamed live online for years. But let's say Athens, it was, why aren't you streaming any of this online, said 10 people like me.
Right.
You know? So and then at Beijing, it was, why aren't you streaming every event online, NBC? And it was a larger number of people. And then this year with the iOS app and with the promise of everything will be streamed, there's a lot of people taking advantage of it. But they missed the very first thing that everybody was like, well, wait, so you're not doing that one thing? I want to see that one thing, and that set the tone.
Right. So it's almost like an uncanny valley problem where they've gotten so close to having perfect coverage of all the events at all times on all streams that now we don't notice and we aren't thankful for all the things that they're doing right. We just notice those few events that they're totally botching.
Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, we're always going to, as a group, as a collective, push for the perfect thing. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is they're delaying things into the evening and not showing them on television that they are streaming online, but then they are archiving them, and then they're pretending like they're live on the television, which is annoying people too.
I think
because
that's
they're like, wait a minute, that gymnastics performance that you're pretending to show me live right now was on earlier, and I could have watched it on your stream, and your freaking Twitter account told me who won.
Right. Well, and I think that's also something that's come to light is because they've been doing, it's never been live. Whenever it says live, there's always some kind of delay, some kind of nipping and tupping.
And then there's the West Coast thing on top of it, right? Where it's actually the things that are live aren't live here.
Right.
Like, that's a whole different thing. Yeah.
But on top of that, though, keep in mind also that during the actual event, like, I want to say it was either Radiolab or we'll say Radiolab for discussion's sake, but they did a piece talking about the sound design that they have for the live events. Because when you see these people rowing and you hear the splashing of the water, you can't hear any of that. There's people screaming, there's helicopters overhead. They're doing live Foley edits on this. They're creating this faux live event so that it feels more authentic.
As I understand it, they're not Foleying so much as like putting mics in places to capture sounds and then kind of mixing it together.
According to this podcast that I listened to, like they full on like they have recordings of splashing that they play and stuff like that. That's again, I could be misremembering. I don't think so though.
Well, I have to say I want to give NBC credit for doing the best live streaming effort yet. It's decent. It's not perfect by any stretch.
Yeah.
And the fact that I could watch the 400-meter men's relay swimming over the weekend live on my iPad in a diner is pretty awesome.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, this is what it's supposed to be. The fact is they they've gone partway down the road and everybody just is like, come on, hurry up, get down this road. You should have been down this road like 4 years ago.
Do you think, and I'm not going to begrudge, I mean, NBC's doing the best to take advantage of a landmark event, as they, you know, they obviously paid a lot of money for the opportunity to get this coverage. But do you think that there might be a time sometime in the next 15 years that we see the Olympics take hold of everything on their own, where it's just like you buy the Olympics app and everything is over the top?
The Olympic Committee should totally do that.
Yeah.
And they should just say, here it is, it's live, and we'll do tape-delayed highlight packages, and maybe we'll hire the networks and the local regions to help us with that.
Or just offer them all feeds. Just say, look, here's the raw feed. Y'all make whatever crazy commentary you want. Go ahead and show it.
Well,
pay a standard license.
That's actually what they do in a sense right now. The feeds are actually provided from a central pool of cameramen.
Yeah.
If you notice, if you watch the BBC somehow and then watch NBC, it's the same graphic package.
Yes.
So this is all being fed out centrally. The Olympics could just go straight ahead and be like, you know what? We're just going to go right to the people.
Just make it all totally transparent. I mean,
they would have to sell all the ads themselves. It's a lot easier for the Olympic Committee to say, you just give us your millions of dollars, NBC, and then you worry about selling ads and making money off.
Yeah. So who's winning the Olympics?
I believe the advertisers are once again ahead in the dollar count. Anyway,
that's all that matters.
Yeah. The one thing before we do move off of this is that I brushed past it for the sake of talking about the usability for most people, but they are requiring you to authenticate to be able to use this app.
Okay, now this is the part where I feel like a hypocrite, because this is something I want, and when I stand outside of it, I can say it's a very minor thing to ask people to do.
Unless you don't have cable.
Well, okay.
Which a lot of people in our
I
don't.
don't have cable, and I can't stand that extra step. It makes me so mad. Like, even to set up HBO Go on another iPad, Bonnie brings it over, like, just make it do the thing. And it's like, I hate that I have to remember and hack my own password of like, did I use that one or the other one? And
the way I'm looking at it, though, it's like, so HBO Go, I sign in with my DirecTV password. And with the Olympics, I sign in with my DirecTV password. What if I just pay the minimum amount for DirecTV? Remember we had that guy wrote in about the dish thing where you just buy a used thing, never set it up, and you can get HBO Go? What if the business plan forward for these companies is to become sort of a pass manager? So in other words, they don't set up a stream. They reduce their overhead. They reduce their costs. They just take money.
I think
they're money collectors. Like, for $50 a month, we're your authentication. We're your pass to all of these websites.
I think that's,
and I'm able to stream video from all of these websites. Netflix could actually even be a part of it.
I think that you will see a growth that will lead towards that. But as you get closer to that, people will realize, wait, $50 is an awful lot of money just to access these sites and when they turn to be like, why do I not have a password just with HBO? Why do I have a password with you, DirecTV? Yeah, I feel like we have another uncanny valley that we're approaching.
If you went straight into that, I think you're right. But if you boil the frog and say like, oh, well, you're going to reduce your package? Well, but if you keep spending $50, we don't care what you do with your set-top box, you'll get all this.
Yeah.
You know, it just kind of eases you in until suddenly you realize one day, you know, I'm not using that set-top box anymore. I'm doing everything over my AirPlay from my laptop to the, I don't know. I see there's a path forward there. I don't know if they're going to take it.
I don't know. There's going to be at some point where there's going to be that tipping point, and then it's going to be a very big change all at once.
It's all in the messaging. It's all in how you get people to do it. If you come out and say, now that you have to do it, of course it's going to totally fail.
Sure.
It's got to be, people got to be eased into it.
You got to boil that frog slowly.
Yeah, you got to make sure. Yeah, I hear that's a myth, that the frog jumps out as soon as it gets hot.
I don't know. Let's try it.
Yeah, I think that is unfair to frogs. I think it is fair to go to another big story.
Stop everything. It's another big story.
Google announced their fiber is good. They're regular. They're also delivering internet to Kansas City over fiber and including TV in the package. Now, you have to get their fiber internet in order to get the television because it's delivered over the internet. It's IPTV, the way AT&T UVerse is or something like that. But they will run fiber into your home. So this is huge. You're going to get a gigabit per second up and down. So you're going to get that for $70 a month.
God.
And then you'll actually be able to get the television on top of that for $120 a month.
This is
So you get the gigabit and the internet for $120 a month, or you get the internet for $7 a month. And you'll see there if you're watching the video, they also offer free internet if you pay a $300 construction fee to just run the fiber. They'll give you 5 megabits per second for nothing.
I have never, ever wanted to live in Kansas City more than I do right now.
I know, right? Good punk rock scene, lovely barbecue, and gigabit per second internet.
Well, okay, now what's their game? Now, first of all, there's two aspects to talk about, and I'm sure you've already discussed this on Tech News Today. What's their angle? Because they can't be making money on this the way it is. What are they trying to paint a vision of the awesome internet future if you just like Google Drive?
I think they can be making money off this the way it is.
Amazing.
I think they absolutely can because they're Google. And actually, Christopher Mitchell of Muni Networks sent me an article he wrote about this where he pointed out what's cost-effective for Google here is that they already own so much network that they can peer, what's called peering. So when they connect to the rest of the internet, if you and I start an ISP here in Petaluma,
right,
and we go out and we're like, okay, we're gonna hook up all these company, these homes and companies,
bunch of 56K
and
modems.
we're gonna buy a bunch of central access. We're gonna roll fiber.
Okay.
Screw it. We've got some money to invest in this. Once we've invested that money, then we have to pay to interconnect with other networks.
Okay.
So you have to pay an L3 or a Hurricane Electric or somebody like that to get to the rest of the internet. You have to pay access. Google doesn't have to do that because Google has the internet under its control, so to speak. They have a lot of fiber that they can offer. They also have YouTube, which other people want to interconnect with. They have their search engine with other people want to interconnect with.
So by virtue of being the destination for half the traffic
so
people are going to use.
So they basically say, look, we're carrying a bunch of your traffic in. You carry some of our traffic out. We'll call it even. That's an oversimplification, but that's kind of the premise.
Is everybody just too excited about the 1,000 megabits per second to pause and think that maybe I don't want my internet content provider to also be the content provider to also be the service provider and to have 60%? This just smells a little bit monopolistic.
Well, when you say content provider, what are you talking about?
Well, you're talking about like YouTube. Like in general, I want everything separate. I want my YouTube to be different from the company that I pay to get to YouTube, and so on. It's is nobody worried?
Everybody says we think what Google's doing is just demonstrating this. I think Google's holding its options open.
Yeah.
I think they're looking at this to see, like, could we do this in other markets?
Like, for example,
but maybe we won't. Maybe we'll license it to other markets. Maybe we make money off the interconnect and set up small guys to do this in other markets.
Right.
I think Google's just trying it out to see what is possible.
Well, and good on them for doing that. And so let's talk about the second aspect, which is probably just as exciting. So the entire internet or the entire cable experience is completely over the top, right? Nothing but IP streams?
Right. And they don't have everybody on board yet. No AMC, no Fox, no Time Warner. Now, they haven't started rolling this out yet, so there's still time for them to get these channels on board. And the fact that they have many of the big channels, they have A&E, they have NBC Universal, makes me, they have Viacom, for goodness sakes. Viacom's still suing them over YouTube, and they're on Google Fiber.
Sure.
So I think it's just a matter of signing documents, not that people don't want to be on it.
So you don't think it's a fact where they've got any kind of previous entanglements? Because technically this would be a stream, right? Or are they able to call it a cable provider?
It's like AT&T Uverse, where they're
Does AT&T Uverse already do that?
Yeah, it comes over IP.
Okay.
So in other words, they're saying we're just going to take a bit of the fiber and dedicate it to the television stream, but it's not coming over the internet per se.
Man,
it gets into slicing and dicing pretty finely.
I'll tell you what, I am totally cool with all this. I think all this is great. I think it's a wonderful experiment, and kudos to everyone who lives in Kansas City. But whenever I take this exact same experiment and put a different word in besides Google, I bristle. Like if this was the Facebook experiment, where Facebook was going to be an ISP, I'd be like, this is a terrible idea. And
Apple.
Facebook is going to, or even Apple, totally closed off internet wall. See? What is it about Google that gets them away where we're like, oh, it's great, it's Google?
Well, because they aren't so much a content provider, or at least we haven't got used to thinking of them that way.
But secretly they are, right? I mean, they drive your email
because they're not
traffic.
a social network like, oh, wait.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is really interesting, though, and I don't know if it's very replicable, but it's something worth watching. The other thing is you have to get people in your neighborhood to sign up. They have neighborhoods identified called fiberhoods that they're targeting for rolling out, but they will not bring the service to your neighborhood unless 10% of the people in your neighborhood sign up for the service.
Okay, well,
which is a way of making sure that you're going to get your investment back of rolling the fiber into that neighborhood.
So they ensure everything's scalable, right? So it's not worth it to go invest the infrastructure unless you're selling it. On the flip side, though, 10% is not a lot. I think I could personally go and get, my entire block up
Already
and down.
over the weekend, 20% of the fiberhoods qualified. Did
Yeah.
I just say fiberhood?
Fiberhoods.
That
You're
is
that
what they're
guy.
calling it. Yeah. 20% of the neighborhoods qualified as fiberhoods, quote unquote.
I say again.
And I used
good,
air quotes.
Good. That's again good, but just say a different word besides Google. Try it on for size.
Microsoft Fiber.
Coming
to your
that's
neighborhood
loaded.
in Tacoma. Let's move on to the Slipstream. So Netflix CEO Reed Hastings, he says the funniest things.
Like what?
He was talking to some folks, some investors, and said about HBO, I think that we could work with them. He raised the possibility on Tuesday last week, right after we did our show, that Netflix could partner with HBO, that his company could work with them. HBO hastened to tell Reuters, we are not in discussions and have no plans to work with Netflix.
Well, and it's funny because like this has to be the least surprising headline of any story. And if HBO nixes idea of Netflix partnership, I mean, of course, there's nothing about the way HBO does anything that would lead me to believe that that anything was in the works or would be anytime soon. But then again, if I'm Reed Hastings, I would say the nuttiest
I couldn't
thing.
find the actual quote. Here it is. While we compete for content and viewing time with HBO, it is also possible we will find opportunities to work together, just as we do with other networks.
And that is exactly the way he should be talking, because
And
in the public...
he's really not saying anything.
No, sure. But he's reminding the public that it's like, hey, man, it's not us who don't want to play ball. It's HBO. And I think gently reminding people of that, maybe poking HBO just a little bit and saying, we got an awful lot of viewers. You've got an awful lot of content. There's no reason we can't work something out
And
here.
Netflix is really trying to position itself as a channel. They're saying, look, I'm sorry, not a channel, as a carrier. They're saying, we know we're making original shows, but that's because we have to.
Yeah.
The more you guys cooperate with us, the less we'll have to make original shows.
Right.
So, for instance, he's got the Epix channel from Viacom, but Epix is going to go non-exclusive soon, which means that you'll still have those
Everyone will
movies,
have it.
but so will other services.
Yeah.
So Netflix is saying, look, we're needing to make content because we need the content.
Right.
HBO, you want to get some money out of our viewers? We'll talk.
How different would things have been if, like, would we be in this position and would Netflix would be aggressively creating new content the way they are now if they hadn't lost the Starz deal?
I don't know about the Starz deal per se. I think what it is the general resistance to giving newer content to Netflix. Remember, NBC experimented with having Heroes on Netflix shortly after air.
Yeah?
One season.
I didn't see
that. And then they got rid of that. Of course, they got rid of Heroes, too.
I was about to say, the two might be affiliated in some way.
But the networks have said, yeah, we don't want people to watch it on Netflix because we're not sure that monetizing makes sense. And so I think that, more than anything, has pushed Netflix into saying, okay, well, for fresh content, for stuff that doesn't appear old, we're going to have to make it ourselves then.
Yeah.
You're kind of forcing our hand there.
Yeah. Well, and I think they're doing the right thing. I think they should continue to rib HBO over it. Anything to shake up HBO's. I mean, they're just sitting on so much cash and so much awesome content that they make so difficult for any cord cutter to watch.
Netflix also has a new competitor in Verizon and Redbox. We've mentioned this previously on the show that they're putting together a new web video service, and according to All Things D, they've started testing it. It looks like you can find it in just a few areas. What does they say? They're back and they're saying a little more. Service has a name now, Redbox Instant by Verizon.
Oh, it just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
Wow, it sure does.
Redbox Instant by Verizon.
Well, Redbox
only 8 syllables.
Redbox Instant is the name.
Only 8 syllables.
By Verizon is sort of like powered by. It's in alpha testing right now, and a full launch is anticipated later this year. So I still am a little skeptical how this is going to work, but the fact that they have Redbox on board.
Well, and to me, Redbox implies more recent content than Netflix, and I don't know if that's branding is accurate or not, but I know that especially because we've had stories in the past talking about how like Warner Brothers is extending the delay before stuff shows up on Redbox. do they say anything about the quality of the content or the freshness of it?
No, not yet. I mean, it's just an alpha testing, so there's hardly any reports about what's there. And even if there were, it's an alpha, so they probably don't have anything there. They don't have everything there yet.
Well, I'll tell you what, if anybody gets into the alpha, if anybody actually sees this, send us an email at framerateshow@gmail.com.
Now, the interesting thing we've seen, and I always feel like we watch things happen in reverse. Like the strictest content restrictions of online video happened in the early 2000s when the fewest number of people might watch an online video instead of watching cable.
Sure.
And then as we get more and more people willing to watch things on the internet, they give you full episodes. It's just crazy.
Right.
Right now, Redbox and Netflix restricted from having DVDs by rental for 28 days by many in order to promote the declining sales of discs.
Right.
But on Sunday, a studio-backed research firm, Digital Entertainment Group, released data showing that the U.S. home entertainment industry was up 1.4% through the first 6 months of this year.
Well, we see this all the time. I mean,
not by selling discs.
Okay.
For the first time since President Bush was in office, they actually generated $2.4 billion during the year, a 78% uptick from digital. And that's what brought the overall total up 1.4%.
So what you're saying is this is a good time to host a show about cutting the cord.
I think it's still a year early. I wouldn't start it yet.
Sure,
if I were you. I wouldn't have been doing it for 3 years yet if I were you.
That's a good point. Good point.
But yeah, leading the way in the digital video is subscription video. And if you look at this, $2.4 billion during the period for all digital video, leading the way is subscription video. And Netflix, I think, made $2-something billion all on its own. And of course, not all the billions that Netflix makes goes to the industry, but a portion of it does. So Netflix probably leading the way in this recovery.
Was there any specific commentary on whether or not this is fueled by the viewing habits of viewers? Because, you know, obviously kids who have been watching stuff on their computers for the last 8 years, they go to college and they're not going to get a TV. They're not going to watch it the old way at all. Or how much of it is, because there's two sides, right? There's the consumer behavior that drives the increase in digital, and there's also the provider trustworthiness, where they're like, okay, we know that we can monetize this amount, and now we're getting advertisers on board. You think it's about 50-50 each?
Yeah, I didn't see any numbers on that. But remember, it's not just the subscription video. It's also electronic sales like iTunes and Amazon Video On Demand that makes up this full number. So even if Netflix is leading the way, it's not just subscription services. And it implies that what people are doing with Netflix and Amazon is replacing buying DVDs, not replacing cable.
Right.
Because the cable numbers have been flat to up. So the subscription numbers, and actually for satellite, they've been consistently up. All right. Google's setting up a studio for YouTube stars in London. This is a part of the I don't know. I think during the fact that the games are going on, they're putting out a lot of press releases about the digital stuff that's happening to make them look hip. But they are doing a creator space in Soho. And they have partners in Europe, Middle East, and Africa who can book the space to film and collaborate with other creators. So it's a way of YouTube facilitating content creators and to making good content for the internet.
So you think it's London just because of the Olympics?
I think that has to do with why we're seeing a lot of these kinds of announcements. Amazon announced a new headquarters there. Facebook announced a new headquarters there. I think they've been encouraged to time these announcements now. But what do you think of the idea of YouTube saying, hey, we're going to set up a studio and make it easy for our partners, if you're successful, to come use it?
I really don't know. And the reason is because YouTube means something right now. And oftentimes it means a type of presentation that you will not see on television, whether it's just a crappy webcam, whether it's, shaky cam out on the streets. Or some of these higher end filmographers who put a unique feel to their stuff. To me, like, I'm looking at this now, I'm like, that looks an awful lot like just another TV studio. If what you want to do is make it look more...
But it's a TV studio that's available for people who don't have TV studios. So
yes.
It's a double-edged sword. I know what you're saying. Like, there's a danger in going into this kind of space that your stuff starts to look like all the other stuff.
Right.
But if you're a good enough content creator, you're looking at this and saying, well, I'm not going to use it the way everybody else uses it. I've been making my stuff in the way I've been making it because I had restrictions on lighting and cameras. If I could get a hold of a couple of those cameras and take them out in the field, or if I had that green screen to shoot with, I could do this idea that I've been wanting to do for a long time.
So the question is, do they say anything about what this would cost or how they would pay for it? Because another thing that YouTube means is that most of the content producers don't have a lot of cash.
Yeah, I think that it's either cheap or possibly free for partners. It doesn't say in this Forbes article. But NextLab, which is a YouTube team, will manage the use of the space and allow people to book it in. I'm guessing that you'll have to pay for it, but probably a lot less than you would have to pay for professional studios that book these things to networks.
I think it's good. I mean, in my mind, for example, you know, I really dig every time I come out to San Francisco. I dig being here in the TWiT studios because there's a different energy, and you start to feel you just think differently when it's like I could turn on this camera and make this commentary and reach the world instantly. Same thing over the Revision 3 studios, and of course, you and I have been in the new media game for a lot longer than a lot of the folks who would be taking advantage of the YouTube facilities. So when I frame it that way of thinking this is a way for everyone to get that kind of experience, then I think it's a great. Then I'm only bummed out that it's only in London. That they should have these everywhere.
They should have one. Maybe they do, and we're just not aware of it. But they should have one here for sure. Let's move on to the tube tops. Tube Tops is about the set-top boxes that let you get the videos and put them on your screens. Or maybe they're not set-top boxes. Who knows? It's all about the ways you get the video, though. Roku has landed $45 million in funding and plans hardware and media expansion. I think the most interesting thing about this is not that they got the funding, but it came from News Corp and B-Sky-B, among others.
I missed that part. Yeah, some old media money there.
Yeah, so this is hedging your bets.
Yeah.
This is calling Roku a possible winner, saying, you know what? We need to be in this game,
do you think
Roku looks like a good bet.
Do you think it's calling them a winner, or do you think this kind of thing makes them a winner? Because 45 large will take you a long way.
I don't think it's calling them a winner at all. I think it's thinking they might be a winner.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. Putting some money behind it. $45 million isn't that much in the large scheme of these sorts of things.
Right.
But it's a lot, and it certainly is going to help Roku get a leg up on the competition.
Yeah.
Roku said it's going to use the funding to promote brand awareness, launch new advertising campaigns, and enter new markets. But it does also plan to increase engineering and production.
Okay, now, so when I first hear that, I'm just like, oh, wait, they're just going to blow it on ads.
I know, right? Yeah.
But on the flip side, I think that's what Roku needs. They got a solid product. They got a solid pipeline of good content. People who, it's been amazing to watch my father-in-law fall in love with his Roku box, and he uses it to watch Revision 3 and TWiT programming. And so with that in mind, I think that's the right call. I think they do need to advertise. And again, we talked about this during the Christmas holiday season. All around the Bay Area, you would see giant billboards saying, you know, Merry Streaming Christmas. I think it's a smart idea.
News Corp's Chief Digital Officer John Miller also joins Roku's board as part of this. So when they're talking about new services, I mean, new streaming things like the digital Roku stick will benefit from this money. New services, though, they need a negotiator. They need somebody to go, hey, NBC, wouldn't you like to put an app on the Roku?
Sure.
Hey, News Corp, wouldn't you like to put a Fox or a not TNT? That's Turner, but they could go to Time Warner and do the same thing.
Yeah, sure.
In other words, go talk to these folks and get them to strike deals. Vizio's $99 Co-Star is their sort of Roku competitor.
A lot of buzz about
Runs
this.
Google TV, available for pre-order. It'll ship August 14th, and it's only $99.
And again, another awesome-looking remote like the Sony Google TV. Now I got to make a decision. You know, I've been talking about getting a Google TV forever, and now I got to choose between them.
Well, you better hurry. They sold out of the first batch of pre-orders in just 12 hours, so you're not going to get it on August 14th.
Well, then I'll take it easy.
And the longer you wait, the longer it'll take. But remember, this thing is it's not too much different from the high-end Rokus. 2 HDMI ports, Ethernet jack, USB stick, and overlays Google TV onto your video content on your existing box. So it's Google TV. It's basically the price and features of a Roku, but with the Google TV foo.
Yeah.
Infused. And
I'll tell you,
the new Google TV, which is better and better all the time.
We're going to see a massive shakeup if/when Apple makes its announcement about some kind of ITV device, but it's all about that interface. That is where the biggest advancements are going to happen. Sometime in the next 2 years will be a fundamental, mind-blowing enhancement to that will change. Like you will not ever want to look at a standard cable box interface again or know what channel
and
anything's
then we
on.
will change the name of this show
to what?
To whatever that product's called today. Finally, Google TV got a few new features. It now lists movie new releases, lets you control YouTube videos from your phone or tablet, kind of like the Google Nexus Q does, except it does it on the Google TV. So it's the same idea. You got an Android phone or a Nexus tablet, Android tablet. You can say, oh, play this YouTube video on my Google TV, And instead of doing it over Bluetooth or infrared or something, it just connects via the Google network and tells the Google TV what video you want, and it starts playing it from there.
Again, it reminded me a bit of the Sonos experience, which we've talked about before.
Yeah, so, and also the new releases thing was kind of a mess before, so that's a little cleaned up now. Let's move on to Film Fact. Now, we have two bullet sounds in the Film intro because there are things we talk about here that are stuff to watch on the internet, and then there are things we talk about here that are stuff to watch not on the internet.
Is that why we have two bullets?
No, it has nothing to do with why we have two bullets. I just made that up.
That was
but
pretty
do you
good.
like that?
No, you had bulleted points.
That is now
that was good.
The lore with bullet points.
See what I did there?
Yeah, that's nice. Third Hobbit movie, folks. We're going to get 3 Hobbit movies. Peter Jackson has confirmed that after he was done with principal shooting, he still had about 4 weeks of other shooting he had planned to do, but he was talking with the writers, looking through the footage, saying, we really want to tell this story right, we don't want to compromise, and we've convinced the studio to allow us to make a 3rd movie that will come out in the summer of 2014.
It just feels wrong.
Did I say that wrong?
For me.
Yeah, summer 2014, that's right.
It just feels wrong somehow, and maybe just because it doesn't seem like The Hobbit, that was originally written and intended to be kind of a light, fanciful tale to set the tone or to set the world of Middle-earth that leads into the epic fantasy of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. It just doesn't seem like it should have the same 3 movies. So you're supposed to be smaller, Hobbit. You're not supposed to be as big and as epic as the whole Lord of the Rings.
That's a really good point. Do remember, though, that the Lord of the Rings extended versions are essentially like 6 movies.
Sure. Oh, no. And keep in mind.
And there are those, me, who still go, I can't believe they cut Tom Bombadil.
Dude, I'm so glad they've cut Tom Bombadil. That's why I was able to finish
But you know what I mean?
thing.
Like, there's large portions of the book that are still left out. So Lord of the Rings is much condensed. I think what we're seeing here is Peter Jackson going, I've got a chance to not have to leave out hardly anything. In fact, I'm taking some stuff from the appendix of Lord of the Rings and sticking it in here. If I can get away with it, I'm going to do it.
And I think that's the other thing, too, is number one, he's got a reputation for putting out extremely good quality product in this universe, in this world. Second of all, it's not like he's going to throw filler. He's not going to invent subplots that weren't in there. Everything that's in the movie.
He may invent a few things, because he did with Lord of the Rings, but it's going to be to cover gaps, not to, like, let's just throw a new storyline.
Right. No, I hear that redheads are hot this year.
Apparently he did that with Aragorn. He threw Aragorn in a place where he didn't exist before. So.
Wow, that is a very minor, specific detail.
I don't know.
It's
pretty major to me.
All right.
Tom Bombadil's not showing up in this movie either.
He just randomly shows up. He's like, I'm Tom Bombadil.
You missed me in the other movie. No, you're right. He is very respectful of the source material, and he has to get the Tolkien estate to sign off on the 3rd movie. He has to get all the cast members to sign off on the 3rd movie. So the fact that he thinks he's got that all taken care of is pretty impressive.
Well, I'm going to reserve judgment until I actually see it, but there's something about it just sort of bristles me, and I don't know why.
Yeah, Ken from Chicago points out Arwen much different in the movie.
Is he?
Yeah, well, Arwen was 2 characters combined into one.
That's
it was Arwen, warrior, princess, instead of just Arwen. Also, so Hobbit, Unexpected Journey. Then what are the last 2 movies called? Because the second one was going to be called Hobbit There and Back Again.
Yes, and then the 3rd one will be The Hobbit Rides Again.
I was thinking Hobbit Unexpected Journey, Hobbit There, Hobbit Back Again.
Pretty sure it's Hobbits Go Bananas is the 3rd one.
Hobbit Spring Break.
Every Which Way But to the Shire is the 3rd one.
Hobbits on the Weed.
Did you say on the weed?
The pipe weed. Yeah, from the South Farthing.
Sure.
Let's talk about Cloud Atlas. This is the Wachowski siblings' new movie. It's not just the Wachowskis, though. They are working with Tom Tykwer, so there are 3 directors on the movie. And it's a big screen adaptation of David Mitchell's novel from a few years back that tells the story across centuries, starting in the past, and then every story jump into a future segment has the person reading about what you were just happening in the past. So it starts in the 1800s, then it's someone in the late 1800s reading about that, then it goes into the modern era, and then it goes into the future.
This, first of all, it is a visual treat, and it's so big, and it's like watching this footage almost makes me sad that I watched any of this. This seems like one of those movies that I would probably enjoy even more if I just knew nothing about it and somebody just said, you're going to watch this now. Now that's, I have no idea what the quality is, but if you look at it, it's so ambitious and it's so big that I hate that my brain betrays me and starts to try to stitch together some kind of narrative to what I'm watching. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and there is a narrative to what you're watching. I haven't read the book,
Yeah.
but it just sounds amazing.
It also seems reminiscent. Did you ever watch The Fountain?
Oh, a lot of people have compared it to The Fountain.
Yeah, I liked The Fountain a lot.
I liked The Fountain as well. Not everybody liked The Fountain, and I think that may end up being the truth with Cloud Atlas. It may be that some people really love it and other people just get annoyed by it because it's going to be very sprawling.
Does it smell just a maybe possibly pretentious? Just a little taking itself seriously?
Well, okay, it's Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell. That book is not super pretentious, but it's definitely not a like sci-fi bestseller that you're going to find out at your local dragon-themed bookshop, right? It's got a little literary patina to it. That's not a bad thing, but then that can also lead to feelings of pretentiousness. Anything the Wachowski siblings touch is going to feel pretentious.
Well, I mean, I guess if they were able to make Speed Racer feel pretentious, then they can do it with anything. But, I mean, visually it looks like a real treat, and I'm excited about this, that's for sure.
I'm hoping this is The Matrix, not The Matrix Reloaded.
Yeah, but you know what? They didn't want to make The Matrix Reloaded. They had the whole separate plan.
Well, and you know what? That's the other interesting part of this story that I almost forgot. The studio wouldn't distribute this. They wouldn't greenlight it. And the Wachowskis went to some private German companies. And they didn't Kickstarter it or anything, but they went and they raised the money themselves.
Right.
They went to individual investors in Germany and got the money to make the film. And they got Tom Hanks. And they got Susan Sarandon. And, you know, they got big-name stars in this. They got Halle Berry, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
And then they started making the movie, and Warner Brothers said, okay, fine, we'll distribute it in the U.S.
Well, isn't that so much of the way it goes nowadays? Because there was a time when the studios used to be able to make the hits, but nowadays it's really the hits that have to drive the studios. It's one of those things where they can't rely on, we'll throw money at these 3 buzzwords, we'll throw a script together by Tuesday and start rolling in the bank.
Almost a 6-minute trailer. And I watched every second of it.
Yeah.
I did not feel like it was that long, and I loved every minute of it. I'm the most excited about this movie that I've been about a movie in a long time.
Wow.
Especially a non-sequel movie. It's easy to get excited about sequel movies to movies you loved in the first place.
Right, because
this is one that's like, I know nothing about this movie going in, and it looks awesome.
Yeah, it's almost like, you know, the Jeff Kanata from the Totally Rad Show. We had him on a live stream once, and we had just released one of the Inception trailers. We were taking a look at it, and like he wasn't paying attention, but he looked and realized that he was seeing an Inception trailer, and immediately shut down the computer because he had kept himself totally pristine because he trusted the filmmaker so much and the idea behind it that he wanted to not know anything. And I felt a little bit like Jeff Kanata in that moment watching this. I was just like, I wish I hadn't.
It's hard to make a lot of sense out of how the story's going to go from this, but I know what you mean.
But still, it sets
you are seeing things.
You will not be surprised by the epicness of those moments.
Sure.
You will go in expecting them, and it's always better to be delighted.
I watched the trailer like 3 or 4 times. It brought tears to my eyes.
Yeah.
I laughed. I cried. It became a part of me.
No,
actually, I did tear up a little bit.
You're like, I yawned.
I also teared up when I heard the Munsters were coming back, but then I read a little farther, and I found out that Brian Fuller, the guy who did Pushing Daisies, which I loved, is bringing it back as something called Mockingbird Lane. And he's trying to avoid calling it a dark reimagining, but that's kind of what it is. It's the Munsters, but it's called Mockingbird Lane because these are actually monsters. They eat people. They have to live with the ramifications of being monstrous. That's a quote from Fuller.
Well, think about it this way, right? In its time, the Munsters and the Addams Family, they played on the established. When you thought of a Dracula, they pretty much put a Dracula in there. When you thought of a Frankenstein's monster, they pretty much put that in there. Nowadays, when we say think of a vampire, you're going to think of something like Twilight or some of the characters from True Blood. And when we mention a werewolf, you're going to think of something different. Just do that same thing. Grab that same mashup of people with today's versions, which are darker and grittier.
This is still period specific. It's going to be in the 60s.
Oh, that's awesome.
At least it looks that way from what I can tell. But instead of this being a comedy about, the monsters are misunderstood, they're just like us, except they look like monsters, it's, no, these monsters kill and eat people. But oh well, you got...
Just tell me you just got a laugh track in there.
You do what you gotta do to get by. John Kricfalusi, whom you should know as the creator of Ren and Stimpy. If you don't, please go search Ren and Stimpy right now. Don't even bother finishing this episode. Is going to kickstart a cartoon.
Yeah, this is huge. Tell me about the cartoon.
He says, I need your help in producing it. It stars one of the original Ren and Stimpy characters, Mr. George Liquor, American. You loved him in Dog Show and Man's Best Friend. Now bring him to life in Cans Without Labels. But essentially, Craig Falusi is an unappreciated genius in the industry, oft times, not always. And he's had a hard time getting his stuff greenlit. So he's saying, you know what? I'm going to go to the people and get it made that way.
Well, and I think the first time I heard about this was from the magician Rudy Kobe, who the way he phrased it in his tweet was said that this guy walked away from $1 billion cartoon. It's like there's, you know, he didn't run Ren and Stimpy into the ground,
right,
and did not over commercialize it and try to Disneyfy it and make it a giant cash cow.
Although I really wanted to go to Ren and Stimpy Land.
That would be awesome.
Yeah,
he'd ride the log. Has have a
log.
roll
It's
over
big.
you.
It's heavy. It's wood. Twitter is said to be readying its own reality TV show.
Yes, yes, a million times yes. This is smart.
The social network is trying not to produce it, but work with producers to create something similar to MTV reality shows. The way it would supposedly work, according to Derek Kerr at CNET, is that the show would be presented in a standalone Twitter page that would include an expanded video player. Another idea would be the series would be aired via tweets, and users could click on these tweets to expand them into a video player.
This is a marriage made in heaven. Think about it. Tell me which of the following am I describing, Twitter or reality television, when I say it's dead simple, it's idiotic, it's fake, it's bite-sized chunks, and it's manipulative and overly simple.
Also the candy counter, strangely enough.
The candy counter?
Yeah, bite-sized chunks, simple.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Overinflated.
It's like, no, it's like if Twitter was going to be anything, in fact, that's an article I'd like to see. I'd like to see different social networks in, you know, because you'd have, Google Plus would be like a really long, boring miniseries that people are like, no, man, you really got to get into it. It'd be like The Wire. Or
yeah. I don't use Twitter the way it needs to be used for this to work, but I know plenty of people who do.
Oh, sure, because
Like,
there's back and forth, there's infighting, there's people who post stuff that they didn't mean to and they want to take it back, there's drama all the time.
And you essentially, as a consumer, have to be following all those accounts and be watching them all the time. Whereas I don't read every post in my Twitter feed. I just can't.
No, it's like, and that's the other thing. It's just this river of crap, and you're able to look up from time to time.
I guess you could do it in a list and then just watch it.
Nobody, I don't know.
Lists.
Yeah.
YouTube sensation Balcony TV has gotten funding. Balcony TV is a quirky YouTube channel which features up-and-coming music acts performing on balconies and rooftops.
Of course.
You know, because like U2 and before them, the Beatles. It attracted its first institutional funding, $750,000 from Polaris Venture Partners. This is what YouTube has been pushing for. It's not so much about the people performing on balconies. It's that YouTube was giving money to partners and channels to try to show that, hey, giving money to these things can pay off because you can then get more viewers and sell advertising with higher quality content.
Right.
I don't know if this is a direct result of YouTube doing that, but this is the kind of thing YouTube wants to see more of.
I'll tell you, it's more of the industry maturing. It's good news for everyone.
Yeah. It is good news. You're right. But I'm upset because we have to talk about the movie draft.
Yeah!
Well, all season long, I've been saying, well, you just got to wait till The Dark Knight comes out, Brian. We won't tell the tale until The Dark Knight comes out. I might win with the Avengers. I'm certainly going to beat Scott Johnson with the Hunger Games, but The Dark Knight's out. Justin Robert Young is in first place. He has neither The Dark Knight, the Avengers, nor any of Scott Johnson's movies.
Yeah, however, you know what he did have is getting awarded Ted, the single best buy in the entire thing. He paid $9 for G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe got moved, so he got awarded Ted, a movie that nobody would have paid more than $9 for if it was actually on the draft. He got awarded it, and now it's the #1 buy in the. It's almost up to $200 million.
$21 million per dollar spent.
That's
so
amazing.
You think it would have sold for more than $9 in the draft?
Yes, but Justin most certainly would not have paid it. Somebody would have paid like 13 or 14, and Justin would have mocked that person relentlessly. Therefore, if/when Justin wins, we're going to put a big old fat asterisk. Little asterisk on there. And he resents it. He says, no asterisk. I won fair and square.
Well, I have to say that he is winning fair and square. It's by the rules.
Sure.
And everybody pitied him when G.I. Joe got kicked out. They're like, well, that sucks. Now he's got stuck with something else.
I think that's the reason I have no patience to hear his strutting around like Clock of the Walk, because I got the angry emails when he's all like, frickin' G.I. Joe I just got screwed. I'm going to... So, therefore, he was not happy about getting Ted, but now he could be all the way not happy to the bank. $200 million. Are you kidding me?
The Dark Knight Rises is at $287 million. No slouch, and it will continue to go up. But Sarah Lane, who has The Dark Knight, still down in 5th place, which she should have rocketed up by now, at least into third or fourth.
Yeah, I'm shocked about that.
One of my 2 remaining movies is this week, Total Recall. So next week we will know my fate better.
Yeah.
Because I have Total Recall and then I have Paranorman. The second thing about Paranorman, it's the last movie of the draft, which means I only get the 4 weeks afterwards.
But 4 weeks is going to, what is there, 5% left extra at the end? I mean, you're not losing a lot.
Paranorman could be one of those movies that does equally well for weeks in a row as buzz spreads, though, rather than being like the big blockbuster that everybody sees in the first weekend. So
maybe. I mean, I would take a look at what did Coraline do. I would imagine it's roughly close to that. Just asterisk.
Last movie, asterisk. Anyway, Total Recall out this week. Go see it. The Bourne Legacy is out in 2 weeks, as is The Campaign, one of Sarah Lane's other movies, followed by Sparkle and The Expendables 2 and Paranorman. So
Campaign looks funny.
It does look pretty funny. Yeah. I'm lukewarm on it.
Maybe I'm drunk.
Maybe you're
Probably I'm drunk.
Let's check whether Brian's drunk. No, let's talk about what we're watching.
What we're watching.
No, you didn't see Breaking Bad? What?
I did not. No, this is... Remember, I got in last night, was traveling, and I wanted to see it, but we didn't get in until like 1 a.m., and I've been up since 6 a.m.
It was a really...
Save it for the spoiler zone, which you could have all by yourself.
It was a really on-television episode.
Was it good?
Where things happened.
What, did stuff break bad?
There was bad, there was breaking... There were actors speaking lines.
Can I make a confession?
Sarah Lane just left because she was like, I don't even trust these guys.
We should drop like fake spoilers on that. So I'm going to make a confession. I now have an 8-year-old daughter who is the exact right demographic for
Breaking Bad?
For Disney television now, and so she's watching all those, not the cartoons, but all those sitcoms with the laugh tracks or whatever like that. I'm not going to lie. Kind of been watching a lot of the Good Luck Charlie episodes.
Yeah,
they're
happen.
Very tight and polished and adorable.
You know, without even having a daughter, I was around an 8-9-year-old for a long time at one point and was watching a lot of That's So Raven. I'll tell you about when that was, too. And I started to have an appreciation. I'm like, you know, the Miley Cyrus show is actually pretty good, but That's So Raven has some deeper elements to it.
Did you ever see Dog Bites Man?
I did.
Yeah,
I didn't see too much.
Zach
of it.
Galifianakis, before anyone knew who he was, playing this guy, and half the show was scripted, the other half was Borat style. They would essentially do their improv with other people in the room who would have no idea. That, they just thought they were a television crew. But there's this one line when he's supposed to be switching, and so he turns on That's So Raven, and Zach Galifianakis is like, he's like, ha, that's so Raven. Sometimes I'll do something and I'll think, that was so Raven. Other times I'll do something else and I'll think, that wasn't very Raven. Just for some reason cracked me up.
That wasn't very Raven at all. So honestly, not been watching a lot.
Yeah, me neither.
Did watch the Olympics. We talked about that. I watched True Blood. I watched Breaking Bad. And...
Still watching The Newsroom?
You know, we skipped it this week.
Really?
Yeah, it doesn't mean we're done with it.
I know, but now it's but now it's on that list. It's no longer a must watch.
Well,
now I'm going to get back.
We've
and watch
already
it.
skipped it and watched it on a Monday.
Yeah.
But this time it was conflicting with other recordings, and we canceled the recording and said, well, we can watch it on HBO Go.
Oh no, that's a bad sign.
Yeah, that's relegating it even farther. Into the,
we'll see.
Into the Outback. Warehouse 13 is on. I got to start watching that. I got to make time to watch more television.
Yes. Well, by all means, stop doing this show so you can watch more TV.
I'll stop preparing this show.
There you go.
And go watch more television. Let's check feedback.
Now it's time for feedback with Brian and Tom on Frame Rate. Oh yeah.
Hi-ho away is like, you watched all of the Olympics already? Yeah, I did.
He's like, I know how it ends.
I figured out how to hack the app to fast forward.
And you can talk about it in the spoiler zone. Tell us who wins.
Yeah, I'll do that. We'll do that in spoiler zone. Devin writes in and said, greetings, Tom, Brian, Jason, and stellar guest. We don't have a stellar guest today, but thank you. A man's entitled to his irrational affection. What follows is in large part irrational, pent-up anger over previous design choices. I don't mean to be overly aggressive with the quoting, but legitimacy pegged my spidey sense. Last week, Brian said, I have an irrational affection for these shortcut buttons. I love the legitimacy of there being a Netflix button, a Vudu button, a Hulu Plus button.
Yes.
Brian Brushwood, do you recall saying these words?
I do, Your Honor, and I stand behind them.
All right. Devin says, I finally bought a Roku recently and chose an older model that had no preset buttons and no games, as I wanted what some brand the signature experience. I also like my TV to just be a damn good TV. When it was just one big red button, it was easy to dismiss, especially since that service was the very reason for many to get devices like these. He's talking about the Netflix button. Make it 3, and now chances are at least 1, if not 2, go unused. Why these 3? Where's Crackle, Amazon, HBO Go, CBS, and any other channel that's not part of Hulu, YouTube, Vimeo, Dailymotion, or any of hundreds of video sites? I want my Vivo. Unless you subscribe to all available buttons, then rather than benefit their useless clutter, worse, branded useless clutter.
Well, that's the whole point, is that you get overwhelmed with choices if you have too much. If you want to have that signature experience where you can have all the different versions you want out there, that's great. However, you're going to do damage to the power of each of those brands, and I'm going to say, as far as the legitimacy, we are built to want to decide only between 2 things, right? And so 2 or maybe 3. And that's why I like that there's 3 on there. So there's one that's obviously the best and a couple of other choices. This is less is more with this kind of thing as far as the aesthetic experience of doing this. People don't like to get overwhelmed with decisions. God, I sound like Apple. I'm ashamed of myself. But I'm going to say I don't even care what the 3 choices are. I love there being 3 choices on there because it's using the trappings that work so well for broadcast television in a new media format. And I think that's good for new media.
Logitech, Harmony, Remote.
Yeah, man. Do you realize, like, that's one of the best things? I only have 12 channels, essentially, because when I set up my Logitech Harmony, I went and grabbed the GIFs, or the GIFs of all the different channels that we watch. There's 6 on the front window for the kids. There's 6 on the back window for me. And it's like, I never go to any other page. If it's not one of those 6, then that's it.
That's all I got to say. I'm out.
Yeah, so there.
You want the next email?
Eat that, yeah. Having looked at the numbers for the weekend, I don't think the unpleasantness in Colorado had much of an effect on the box office for The Dark Knight Rises at all. It outperformed the previous Batman movie, which has sort of surprised me. However, it could have sold exactly the same number of tickets as did the Avengers, more even, and not touched the numbers the Avengers brought in. 2 reasons. 1, running time. Dark Knight Rises is about 20 minutes longer than the Avengers. The longer running time tends to mean fewer showings per day.
Then it wouldn't have sold as many tickets if it had fewer showings.
That's true. Good point. Also, no 3D. The Avengers was available not only in normal and IMAX versions, but 3D, normal, and 3D IMAX. The 3D options are more expensive than their 2D counterparts.
That makes sense.
Sam Dunham, yeah, agree with all that. I can't think of anything I really disagree with.
The longer running time means fewer showings, so that means fewer tickets.
Right.
So I don't think you can say that they would have sold the same tickets and made less money, except for your point about 3D, where, yeah, you do sell the same number of tickets and make less money because they charge more for 3D. Thanks for that, Sam. Nate says, I am Nate the cord cutter for about a year now. Roku owner for 6 months, frustrated with the lack of functionality on Roku and looking at alternative devices. I feel like I am ready to graduate to a more powerful platform, and I'm currently looking at 3 devices. 1, WDTV Live, that's the Western Digital box. Looks great on paper, lots of content options, easily access stored content on my network, supports a wide variety of media formats. Concerned about the openness, longevity, and extendability of the platform. 2, Vizio CoStar. As a diehard Android user on a budget, I love the thought of this device, but I'm not sure it can ever live up to its potential. 3, Nexus Q. Love the thought of hacking this thing into the ultimate media center, but not sure if this solution will turn out to be as good as a cheaper device. I'm not scared of DIY projects, but don't want something that's just cobbled together or I have to spend an inordinate amount of time on. Should I go with a different or more powerful solution like a full-blown media center, or maybe wait for one of the new XBMC boxes? Not sure what kind of functionality I might want in the future and which solutions are flexible enough to keep me from purchasing new hardware every year.
I'll tell you what, if you are real-life, hands-on techie, I don't see how you can beat a computer in the living room. I mean, it's fully customizable. You can make it do whatever you want.
And you
it's
put
got
XBMC or maybe even Myth.
Sure,
People still swear by Myth.
Yeah.
And it's still getting updates.
Yeah, I would go with the legit PC.
Yeah. And some people say Mac Mini, but the fact that you said, I'm not sure what kind of functionality I might want in the future, and I want it to be flexible enough to keep me from purchasing new hardware every year, makes me think Mac OS X is probably not right for you.
Yeah. And to be honest, you know, the Microsoft media server experience is really pretty nice. I mean, especially if you take advantage of, I know a friend of mine actually got it all set up with the Xbox integration where it had the TiVo-like capabilities and grabbed the episodes for you.
Yeah, I would try to, maybe just build your own, or get a local computer shop to build one for you if you don't want to take the time to build your own, and put Linux on it, and then run XBMC.
Yeah.
Do it. That's a little DIY, but not something that's just cobbled together, because you can put in a really nice video card with HDMI out and all of that sort of thing, infrared, remote control, everything you want. So if other people have thoughts for Nate, send them along to us. framerate@twit.tv is our email address. That's it for this show. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, man. I'm going to go leave the country now.
What? You know what? You cannot top this show. You should leave the country.
Okay, done. Bye.
That's it for Frame Rate. You can find us live on Mondays, 3 p.m. Pacific Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Time at live.twit.tv, and on demand any minute you want it, any time of day at twit.tv/FR. And, of course, email us, like I said, framerate@twit.tv. We'll see you next time if Brian lives through Indonesia.